let's get to our third topic real quick,
Yep.
and that is an unheralded impact player, somebody that maybe we're not giving enough love to, who's impacting winning, playing on a good basketball team. I'm going to start with you, actually. Who is your unheralded impact player so far at the quarter mark?
Yeah, I love the way that this is worded. Unheralded impact player. Doesn't mean that this is a player that had to come like kind of like out of nowhere, right? And now all of a sudden he's in a rotation on a good team. How about a guy that's been around a long time, but because of some other guys on his roster, is not getting any credit for their 17-4 start? I'm going to go with Mike Conley.
I love it. Great
Okay.
one.
Who's been one of my favorite players since the day he came into the league. I just love his professionalism. I love how hard he plays defensively. I love how smart he is. He's a big game player. When you look at the Minnesota Timberwolves, obviously most of the attention is going to go toward Anthony Edwards, who's this emerging star, potentially a superstar type talent. And now the winning is actually coinciding with it. So now you're really starting to buy in to Anthony Edwards' impact and ultimately what his ceiling could be. And it got Karl Anthony Towns, who's been an all-star, who's put up huge numbers for Minnesota before. You've got Rudy Gobert, who's going to be a Hall of Famer, who has transformed them defensively. Right? You've got all these guys. McDaniel guarding everybody all over the floor, getting a lot of attention for that. And then you've got this guy at the point who is playing roughly 30 minutes a night, and he's turning the ball over once. One time per night, Mike Conley turns the ball over. And here's why it's so important. The organization, when a team is trying to get to that next level where you take them seriously, we know defensively they're significantly better. But if you just had Anthony Edwards and Karl Anthony Towns sort of doing their own thing offensively, I don't think this team is close to 17-4. You need organization and the security that Mike Conley provides when that ball's coming up the floor and the way he directs traffic. His IQ, he's the CPU of the team. He is the central processor. He's the guy that's looking at everything, getting the floor balanced, making sure that Anthony Edwards is going to start somewhere and receive the ball in a position where now it's advantageous for him, where he's going to attack from in a two-man game or an iso, whatever it may be. He's the guy, Mike Conley, that's going to make sure Karl Anthony Towns is where he needs to be at the start of a set so he catches it with maximum efficiency. The way he manages a team, it's so subtle. It's so understated. He's been around a long time. And look, and he's gotten a lot of accolades. He was on really good teams in Memphis. I just don't think Mike Conley's name has been mentioned once all year with the impact of success on the Minnesota Timberwolves. And that's why I wanted to give him a shout out right now. They're not where they are without Mike Conley as that stabilizing force at the point guard position.
All of the praise that Mike Conley has gotten, I think, has come from internal people in the Wolves organization, whether that's been Chris Finch, different players. They've talked about how he essentially has been the difference maker since being traded there last year. And he played really well last year. But you think about this, Tim, and I know I got traded twice in season. It's hard when you get traded in season to figure things out on the fly.
Yeah.
He's had, last year, the first round of the playoffs, and then an offseason, the preseason. Like, to me, he's figured out sort of the perfect role for himself. And he, with all the sort of spacing issues and, whether it's like, why aren't we as good defensively when we have Gobert on the, well, they've figured all that out now. And he sort of has made this whole thing work. Anthony Edwards is going to be their highest usage player. To me, at this stage in Mike Conley's career, he's almost the perfect complement to Anthony Edwards.
Great point.
Because of his ability to space. He's not going to be a high volume creator anymore in his career. So there's no ego there in terms of batting with a high usage guard in Anthony Edwards. He is like the perfect complement to Anthony Edwards. And he's been phenomenal. And I love that you shouted him out. I'm going a different direction here. My unheralded impact player, the guy that I don't think is getting enough buzz and love right now, is actually Joel Embiid. It's actually Joel Embiid, the reigning MVP. Because every time we talk about the Philadelphia 76ers, it's always about Maxey. It's always about Nick Nurse. It's always about these role players. We always have to bring up James Harden. And we just kind of take it for granted. Oh, Joel Embiid's there, right? Joel Embiid is having arguably his best season of his career this year, coming off an MVP, coming off multiple top twos in the MVP race. And you think about, I brought this up on Friday when I was doing some studio stuff for ESPN, and you think about the conversation around Jokic and Embiid. So much of this conversation was around advanced stats and how Jokic had this massive advantage in advanced stats. And a lot of voters and a lot of people that cover the NBA talk about this. We are starting to normalize some of these stats in our regular conversations around the NBA. I know I use them, and I usually try to take opportunities to explain them. Right?
Yeah, they're important. Yeah,
the margin now for Joel Embiid and Jokic or any other player, really, because there's a bunch of guys, and there's really 4 guys that have really stood out in a lot of these advanced stats, specifically the offensive stats. The margin is just so slim now. And Embiid actually right now has the highest player efficiency rating in NBA history. He just overtook Jokic. Jokic had those 2 off-shooting nights. Joel Embiid is averaging a career high. He's on pace to win his 3rd straight scoring title. He's averaging a career high in assists. And you think about some of the advantages in these conversations around Jokic, like, well, Jokic is the hub of the offense. Well, guess what? Joel Embiid has now become the hub of the offense. With no James Harden. He is the hub of the offense. He is the playmaker. I want to run through these real quick. It is fascinating to me because I looked at all this stuff. Oh, by the way, one thing before I get to the advanced stats. He's also one of the smartest players ever, and I mean that. I'm serious. The ability to draw fouls is such a skill, and we can show the clips on Twitter all we want. We complain all we want. This is what makes guys so hard to guard now. You don't realize how much tape that a James Harden watched in his career, or how much tape of Joel Embiid watched in his career, how much tape a guy like Anthony Edwards is watching right now. Okay, when I make this move, where is the defender's hands? They know where the hands are at all times. He's averaging a career high in free throw attempts, and he's shooting a career high 87.5%.
Hey, real quick, I just want to, before you finish up, I want to just tag that point, because here's something else people need to understand.
Yeah.
The impact that a player has when he draws that many fouls and he puts teams in foul trouble basically by himself, gets his team into the bonus. You know what that means for Tyrese Maxey, one of the quickest guys in the league? You can't touch him now, because you're in the bonus early in quarters because of what Joel Embiid just did single-handedly. So the impact permeates other players on the roster with your ability to put your team in the penalty that quickly. It makes guys like Maxey, who are so lightning fast on the perimeter, basically unguardable at times, because you got 6 minutes left to play in this quarter, and any contact means 2 free throws. So I just wanted to point that out, because sometimes people just think it's all about Embiid's free throw attempts. That permeates the entire roster.
And it's a great point. And for all the people who complain about the Lakers getting a ton of free throws, it's the same point for the Lakers. Anthony Davis and LeBron James are going to put so much pressure on the rim. That's the reason the Lakers lead the league in free throw attempts, and there's such a disparity between their free throw attempts and opponent free throw attempts. They are drawing fouls. I think about when I played with Joel Embiid, the way Brett Brown had my rotations for those 2 years. I would generally play the first 6 or 7 minutes of the first quarter. I would then sit out about 2 or 3 minutes, and then I'd come back in the last, call it 2.5, 3 minutes, whatever the under 3 minute timeout was. I come back in. Guess what? Every single time that I came back in, we were in the bonus, because Joel Embiid had got us there. And so when I came back in, guess what? If you put your hands on me when I'm coming off a screen, I'm figuring out a way to get fouled. 2 free throws. There you go.
So true.
There you go. I was always cognizant of that playing with Joel, his ability to get us to the bonus. Real quick. So Joel Embiid right now, I mentioned the player efficiency rating. He's 3rd in win shares, Jokic and Shea. 4th in offensive win shares, Hallie, Jokic, Shea. 2nd in win shares per 48, Shea's number 1. 2nd in box plus minus, Jokic number 1. 3rd in offensive box plus minus, Hallie and Jokic 1 and 2 there. 7th in defensive box plus minus for all you Jokic haters. Jokic is number 1 there. 3rd in value over replacement player, Jokic and Shea 1 and 2 there. I mean, when you think about it, like, and you say, who's having the best season in the NBA? It's like 4 guys. It's like really 4 guys. And Joel Embiid is one of them, and we've taken it for granted. We've taken it for granted. I go back to something he said in preseason, which is essentially, we still have a chance to win because I'm here. And I saw the quote. I reacted to it. I talked about it at the time. He's right. They have a chance to win every single night because he's simply one of the 1 or 2 best players in the world. That's how I look at Joel Embiid right now in his career.
And there's no debating anything around what you just said. And here's the final point, and this really has put a lot of juice in Sixers fans right now, and they need it because of what just happened to the Eagles the last 2 games. Sixers fans right now are feeling this sense of hope because the other thing is Joel Embiid feels right now. He feels a different sense of joy, I think, to play because I think he's looking at the guy next to him, and I just think he's got such confidence in Tyrese Maxey, not just in how he's playing right now in the regular season and his emergence. It's also, I think, Joel Embiid looking down the road. I think Joel Embiid has more faith that when they get into these difficult series, and they're going to have several, and potentially they got to get through Boston and Milwaukee, maybe if that's how it lines up, you're going to make sure that guy is there. And he's able to operate the same way he did in the regular season against those teams in a best of 7. I think Joel Embiid, because of that, he's got a nice little bounce in his step. He looks incredibly happy right now. Like the game is fun for Joel Embiid. There's no burden there. And the talent is unquestioned. The question's always going to be what's going to happen at the end of this journey when you get into April, May, and June. And I think for me, I have more belief in this Sixers team right now than I have in the last couple.
Yeah, and my hope, my sincere hope, and obviously I love Joel, friend. My sincere hope, though, is he's healthy, number one, because he's had a bunch of playoff injuries.
True.
He's healthy. He dominates. The Sixers make a run, and we can stop all the fucking noise around Joel Embiid and his playoff performance because it's annoying.
Amen.
I'm not saying it's not based in fact. I'm not saying that.
No,
but it's annoying. It discredits his greatness. And the context around a lot of I played with him, and he was injured 2 of the years that I, the 2 years I played with him. He's had a knee injury. He's had, I think, 2 knee injuries during the playoffs since I left. Like, he's been hurt a lot of times in the playoffs. So my hope is that he's healthy. He dominates. Sixers make a run. We can stop all this noise about Joel Embiid in the playoffs. I'd love that.